Hello, everyone, and thank you for purchasing Psychedelic Microdosing 101. Today, we're going to be covering the basics of microdosing and how to use this safely and effectively. It's a process that I went through, gosh, for probably a good 4 years before I really got a hang of it. And so I offer you this class to expedite that process for yourself. To help you use it more safe, more effectively, and to eliminate all that struggle here in a pretty simple consolidated form. I also offer one-on-one work with microdosing. So if you need help with that, as well as community events around personal transformation using microdosing together in a small group, as well as free and donation-based events where we can just come together and share our experiences with microdosing. So without further ado, we can get started. So during this class, we're going to cover what exactly is microdosing, what is it doing for us, what it is not. There's a lot of myths. There's so much information on the internet, people tossing just so much out there. And my journey has not been that simple, piecing information together. So what it is not, safety and potential risks that you can encounter in the process of microdosing. There are risks and potential benefits. We're going to cover what we have seen in studies, also personally, what I've seen in myself and others that I've been around. Dosing, how to dose, how to properly figure out your dose. Really, really, really important part. Protocols. So how to take your dose, what is optimal, because it's not something that people typically take every day long term. It's not to be used like a pharmaceutical, which we'll get into. So protocols, and then ways to potentiate microdosing for a specific outcome and how to integrate what you learn through microdosing. Very important disclaimer. I am not a licensed medical professional. I am not telling you to take any substances, to grow any illegal substances, to accumulate any or purchase any illegal substances. This is merely me offering you information that I have pieced together and offering for harm reduction, for your education, to make sure that you know there's more to the story than just taking a substance and thinking your life will change. And this is really merely sharing my journey as well as many other journeys and what we've pieced together and what we feel is most important. Like I said, this comes with many years experience of myself, as well as hundreds, if not thousands of people that I have worked with and partnered with in this journey of microdosing and using these substances for personal transformation. So you're really getting a comprehensive guide to a very foundational, not comprehensive, a very great solid foundation to move forward from if you are choosing to do this yourself. Once again, I am not suggesting this or advocating for this. So what is microdosing? So much out there. Once again, like I said, so much out there. And what are people using it for? What they shouldn't use it for? As a trained herbalist, it is adaptogenic. So that means it adapts to essentially what you need. And that's where kind of the trickiness comes in. Sometimes we don't know what we need. Often many people come just to explore it, to see what happens. Others come to heal their trauma, to help with mental health issues, to help with physical ailments. Essentially, it's taking, in this case, referencing using a psychedelic, psilocybin, or LSD is what I primarily am regarding in this conversation, is taking a very small amount on a schedule in order to see the benefits, to work and to optimize our neural pathways, our neuroplasticity possibilities to create lasting change. A lot of people say it's subperceptual. To me, it's subhallucinogenic. You shouldn't see things like smearing and moving. You've probably taken too much then. You shouldn't be debilitated and incapacitated in any way. Granted, my journey, even with very, very small amounts, still does that to me. I do have complex trauma that I'm working through, still continue to work through. I have come a very, very, very long way with this process. And so that's why I like to offer it to you. But with that being said, we'll get into more of the details later. It shouldn't be that random objects that don't normally talk are talking to you. So subperceptual, it's still perceptual in many cases, but it should not feel so deeply altered and so out of your normal experience that you cannot function. Very important part. So we'll go over the doses as you saw in the table of contents. And that's where we get to playing and making sure that it is not hallucinogenic for you and that you are still able to function in your day-to-day life. So how psychedelics work on the brain. There's a lot of science out there. This is not something, I'm not a scientist, I am not a doctor. I won't get too wordy, and I don't want to get too into the nuance and the science of it. But essentially it's working primarily on your default mode network. It also works on your dorsal attention network, how you perceive things around you. How you perceive things is really how your brain drives meaning from your experience and from your world. And so that's really significant to alter your perception in that way, because then you can choose with a clear account to what's actually happening to you in front of you in that moment. A lot of our anxiety, our depression, our struggles in life come from the meaning that our brain has already assigned to an event or something that's happening in our current reality. And it's not really in direct proportion. So that's a really big thing. Hippocampus activity patterns change, anterior cingulate cortex. So your memory related processes. Once again, a lot of us have traumatic memories, or our concepts of certain things are stored as a memory to help us understand what's happening in the present moment. So to be able to change that, really powerful. One of the most common things mentioned, default mode network, is something, this is the analogy I like to use. A lot of people use this. You may have heard the ski slope and the fresh snow analogy. I like to use the dirt road analogy. For whatever reason, it's a better picture for me. So if you are out in the country and your house has a dirt road, and it's a road that you've driven down for countless years, let's say 50 years, it's a clear paved path. If you're 50 years old, that's essentially your default mode network. It's the pattern in your brain that fires, that's similar, that is easiest for you to go to throughout your day. Nature loves to conserve energy. And so to use the path of least resistance in our brains conserves a lot of energy, even if we don't like what it's producing. So if the simplest path is for you just to grab, a candy bar or to grab the Frappuccino every day, that's where your brain is automatically going to fire for you. It's a little bit harder to think outside of that context. It's working against the grain. It's taking more energy. Hence why a lot of people, when you're working out, of course, because you're burning more calories, but when you're working out or you're making new changes or you're learning new things, we often can be a little more hungry because we're using more energy to choose a new path. The default mode network is that dirt road that's the path of least resistance. Because if you're going to drive your little car off to the side and try to create a new driveway to your house when the grass and there's probably trees and who knows what else is really, really high above your car, driving through that tall grass, that off-roading is going to be hard in your normal everyday car because it's working against years of overgrowth. And the same is for your brain. So what happens when we take psychedelics is what we've noticed is that it's like a big tractor comes in and just mows it all clean, probably a bulldozer. So it's an even level playing field. And when that happens, it lasts, it's just like in nature, it's probably going to stay pretty even ground for maybe a few days, a few weeks. But after that, things start to grow and it gets a little harder to drive on that new road. And if you're not driving on that new road that you want to take, i.e., new habits with food, thoughts, exercise, whatnot, if you're not taking that new path during that time that it's been bulldozed and there's an even playing field, it's going to be a lot harder to work against that once it starts regrowing. So while taking them higher doses and lower doses, it's important to incorporate new habits to get your default mode network to be a different default, to be set on a different default. So what microdosing is not. It is not a panacea. This is going to be a pretty redundant list, but it's not a panacea. We're humans. We don't often realize our preconceived ideas of many things. Even no matter how many times I tell people and clients, like, this is not just a pill you swallow and your life has changed. We work on that. We think we've let go of that story. And then a month later, 2 months later, we realized we still had and held on to that belief that this was like a cure-all, and it's not. It's not a quick fix. It takes time. There's processes. There's a practice involved with this. Once again, we're having to still make new choices. When we swallow this pill, it doesn't make us make new choices, but it gives us space to make new choices. It makes the new choices hopefully a little easier, or it's helping clear out the brush that's in the way of us making those new choices. It's not to be used like a pharmaceutical. It's not to take and just assume that things will be fixed. It's a process, once again, and a practice. It's not all cupcakes and rainbows. If you like cupcakes and rainbows, it's not always easy. Like I said, if you are wanting to make a change and it's a behavior that you've had for a long time, or if there's memories or trauma or struggle or emotions that you've been ignoring or pushing away for a very long time, a lot of times we go through a confrontational process of having to learn to feel emotions, to grieve experiences, to reconnect and move through stuff that we avoided moving through or admitting or seeing or working through before. It's not for you to ignore an issue. Once again, a little redundant. It's a repeat, it's a repeat to what I said before. It's confrontational medicine. Often we have to confront things in ourselves before we can move on to something new. And notice any resistance you might have, of course, if you're microdosing, but also more importantly, if you're about to start and you are hearing what I'm saying, notice in you if you have resistance. Are you still hoping that there's not going to be work for you involved? Are you still hoping that this will solve all your problems? That's not really realistic expectation. It's a big part of this process for me with clients, and offering this to you in this class is noticing your want to not do the work. There's work involved. It's a practice, and it involves courage and patience and tenacity and attention, focus. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So this is a process of taking your power back. It's a self-empowerment medicine. It's learning how to deal with your challenges. It's helping you, support you in dealing with your challenges. That's why I also offer one-on-one support or community support, because it's not easy. And I feel most people should have a therapist through this process. They're dealing with trauma, or if once they realize trauma or they're struggling with this process, it's a time to find a coach, find support, at least find community. Safety and harm reduction. Well, yes, these are not substances for everyone. And they might be substance for you, but it's not necessarily for you at this time. That's really important. Being very honest with yourself about where you are is critical. I was not honest with myself when I started microdosing, and that was years after I had had several psychedelic experiences. I still, in the beginning, and for many years, did not have the space and the ability to work through, or the monetary means to work through what microdosing brought up for me. So as much as I might have wanted to transcend certain things, I did not have the capacity at that time. But on the other side, psychologically, depending on, if you have a mental health diagnosis, you're worried about conflicting with this, we'll get into that. It's really important to see on this list the potential harm that can be caused from overdosing with mushrooms or LSD or psychedelics. It's very, very low. Once again, I am not a medical professional, but there has been 0 reported cases of overdosing on pure LSD or mushrooms. It's you might feel like you're dying, and a part of you might be dying, but you're not literally going to die. I know people that have gone to the hospital, but they were perfectly fine. Again, paranoia. So once again, that's at higher doses typically. Preparing for those experiences is really important. To get the most out of experiences, to prepare and to be well educated is very important. But as you can see here, the things that we consider normal in our reality, such as alcohol, has a very, very high harm rate to ourselves and to others. Mushrooms, LSD, very, very low, and pretty much towards us. And in that category, it's not like they're jumping out of windows or whatnot. It's more of like, oh, I tripped when I was trying to walk normal. Or maybe I got more depressed because I didn't have the proper support, or I got stuck in a negative thought pattern and felt very depressed afterwards. That is more of the harm that they are referring to in these tests. So very important. And I have extra resources outside of this. Actually, you know what? Let's go back one slide. With safety and harm. I want to emphasize overall, yes, they are safe. The exceptions often also include heart conditions, mental health conditions, as I noted, typically bipolar and schizophrenia. I don't agree with that personally, and I've seen people have great success stories, especially with bipolar and using these medicines. Granted, please, please, please exercise greater caution with heart problems and certain mental health conditions. Once again, support, please, please, please. And there's no long-term studies done on microdosing to this date when it comes to these substances. All right, next slide. Once again, I have extra resources. Feel free to reach out to me. I believe my website still has these up. If not, I'm happy to offer to you physicians as well as people who have doctors and pharmacists that have thoroughly studied these molecules in conjunction with other medicines, more Western medicines and prescriptions, to note their interaction and potential, like I said, very much potential risk for harm. Lithium is a pretty strong no. I've been told, once again, just what I'm relaying this information, serotonin syndrome, really haven't seen. I will say we really, really haven't seen, especially when it comes to microdosing, but there is adjustments that typically need to take place when it comes to dosing and practices when using SSRIs or MAIO or MAOIs, SNRIs. It can get kind of complex in there, but once again, I would work on tapering off these. I've seen people taper off of these with using psychedelics, and most notably, they work against each other. So one is to repress, contract, to more isolate things in the mind, prescription-wise. And this is, like I said, more confrontational medicine, so you can move through whatever you were working on suppressing with those medicines. Valvular heart disease, schizophrenia, bipolar, once again, cautionary. You might worsen your symptoms, and being prepared for that. Once again, finding proper support, really, really important. I have a list of resources for support. I offer that support because your anxiety can get worse, your depression can get worse, your lethargy can get worse. these things can be exacerbated, OCD too, before you get better. And that is not to say that you should discontinue, although discontinue if you feel incapable of working with that, but finding support. Please find support. Once again, there's a lack of studies of long-term use on this. This is merely from, like I said, even thousands of people I know that have used them successfully. And that is why we offer what we offer in the form of education and services, because we've had long battles of dealing with lots of complex things, and we want to offer those gifts that we've discovered to you. As I mentioned a bit earlier, please properly taper off any medications, and with support. Make sure you know someone who's qualified to offer that support for you, and so that you are using it safely, as a lot of medications have significant withdrawal symptoms, and it can be uncomfortable, and it can take time. So the good stuff and why you are probably here. It's a lot of self-awareness. It really is. And some people say, well, is it the self-awareness practices, or is it the medicine, or is it both? I think it's both. And some don't want to hear that. I have a few people who have just swallowed it, felt better, life has changed, and then didn't have to take it ever again, the rest of their lives. It was more of people implementing changes and taking action in a certain way with the process of microdosing that made it so it was just something they utilized for a period of time and didn't have to use forever. A lot of people come to this practice because they don't want to be on medicine their whole life. They don't want to be reliant on something their whole life. And this is not, all psychedelics, in my opinion, is not something for you to be reliant on. Things should improve. And if they aren't, I would say it's time to switch medicines, find a new coach, find a new therapist, find new practices to use in conjunction with the microdosing. So potential benefits, mood enhancement, pro and con to that. If you're feeling really horrible, it's probably going to enhance that. And it's going to allow you to see why you're feeling bad. Because many of us have woken up and like, oh, I just woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and dismiss it as that. Well, what's really important in order to change our lives is to understand why we are not feeling as great as we are, to use that as a tool to understand, to improve our lives. So benefits, I don't say that's really a con, but most people would perceive amplifying a current bad mood as a con, just to understand that a little bit further. If you're feeling joy, and say you're feeling more love or excitement because you are spending time in nature that weekend, or got an exciting promotion at your job, it's going to enhance that, and in return typically give you a really deep sense of gratitude. And that deeper sense of gratitude really is life-changing. Increased connection with self. These are going to be redundant again. You're going to feel more in tune with you. You're going to understand why you're upset. You're going to understand what your needs are more. You're going to understand what you like, what you don't like. You're going to understand what you need to do to feel better and to create the reality you're wishing to create, which is very positive. And it, once again, can be confrontational. We might have to confront our limiting beliefs, our perceptions on things, and be open to changing our minds. Increase productivity and focus. So, being able to finish things, being able to commit to things. Once again, it's a practice. I wish it happened overnight, because that's one that I would really, really love to be fixed quickly. But that has improved for me, but it's a continual practice. Presence, you're more present in your day-to-day to life. You're feeling increased accountability for your actions, your choices, your reactions. It helps with addiction and maladaptive behaviors. To me, addiction is maladaptive behavior. It's a coping mechanism to handle something that you struggle to handle. And whatever way you perceive addiction and maladaptive behaviors are often benefited by using microdosing. Physical health improved, whether it be neuropathy, pain, chronic pain, inflammation. These are all things that have been significantly improved in my body. I went through a lot of chronic pain in my life and fibromyalgia and arthritis and whatnot, and that was greatly improved through microdosing. Greater appreciation for the life experience. You know, how you feel in life is really a motivating force. To feel better is such a profound and important and significant part of our life. We really are driven by feeling, and that's typically why we want something or why we are looking for something. It's a feeling, in essence, an experience of a feeling. So taking the time to get to know yourself better, to move through this process, to do it with support and community is really, really awesome. But like I said on my website, and something I say over and over again, the gift of knowing yourself on a deeper level, which is most of the benefit of this is invaluable, is probably one of the most powerful gifts you could give yourself in this lifetime. So some current research that's being done on psychedelics with microdosing and larger doses is, and they've seen success, is with migraines, obsessive compulsive disorder, eating disorders, premenstrual syndrome, any female reproductive health issues, hair loss, addiction, recovery from stroke, allergies, social anxiety, burnout, traumatic brain injuries. It's a lot of mental health, which most of you already know, depression, anxiety, and then hormonal imbalance, menopause, and PMDD. All right, very, very important. These are the things you need. So get a notebook out. If you don't already have a notebook out, you're gonna need a scale, a small scale. A scale, a lot of people go with kitchen scales. The scale needs to go to milligrams. If it's only grams, it's not going to work. Milligrams is crucial. You want a jar. I just brought along a random jar. I would not recommend this jar because it's clear, but a jar. I'm going to keep it real simple. There's so many things you could add to this, capsules, this, that, the other thing, but that's just more of a barrier to entry in my opinion. So having a dark jar with a lid that's sealed, that you can seal really tightly, awesome. There's ones with like pressure gauges and moisture readings. That's awesome too. Silica packets, you can get those in other supplement bottles. Maybe look in your old supplement bottles, pull one out, buy them online. They're inexpensive to keep your dried, if you're using mushrooms, your dried mushrooms dry. We want to keep the moisture out so they don't spoil. We're not looking to freeze them or anything of that nature. Maybe put it in the refrigerator, but preferably we want to just have it in a cool, dry, dark spot. And then coffee grinder. You can use a mortar and pestle too, but a regular coffee grinder, because you're going to grind it into a powder to weigh out every day that you dose. We're going to start real low. Real low is highly recommended because we can always add more. Undoing is not really the name of the game once you've already taken it. So granted, we can eat, we can drink water, we can do things to help get it out of our systems, but ideally we're starting low. And we're talking 50 to 75 milligrams or 0.5 to 0.75 grams. I've seen people even start lower, but I really recommend sticking with that dose, depending on if you're on medications, because like I said, certain medications work against the substance. So it's going to be a little bit trickier. You're going to maybe need a higher dose. I have not seen a direct correlation with weight. You think, oh, I'm a big guy, I weigh 3 times as much as you. I wouldn't say more is needed. Granted, that might be the case, but I would not say more is needed, and please start low. If you are really large and big, maybe 100 milligrams to start, but like I said, start with 50 is my recommendation to 75. You're going to stick with this dose, with the practice, with a ritual, with consistency, on an empty stomach in the morning, first thing, with your coffee or your tea or your water. I would not take it with food. If you do have stomach upset, maybe having some crackers or making a ginger tea to take with it is nice. Ideally, in my opinion, I think empty stomach is optimal. And then you're going to work with the practice, the ritual, and intention. Why are you taking this? You're not taking it just because, I mean, you can, but sitting with that for a minute, you know, meditating with it for a couple of minutes, maybe taking a couple deep breaths with it, being mindful, giving it intention. You know, people say time, it takes time to change. I think it takes attention and intention, and intention is where your attention goes. So if you're using it for a focused practice, it really, really helps. Stacking is a common term you hear, which means you're taking your medicine, your substance with other substances. I really recommend starting off just plain to see what the benefit is on its own. I think that some people can mix them and then they don't know what's doing what. Some people can mix them and not like how they're feeling, when really, if they just took it by itself, they felt way better. If they're having a weird reaction of some sort, that they think it's psilocybin, of course, first and foremost, when really it's not. I just think it's best to stick to the basics, especially in the beginning. Like I said, I'm an herbalist. I'm happy to work with people with other plants separately and in conjunction, but it's optimal, in my opinion, to start at the basics. People think that supplementation is harmless. I highly disagree. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. There's a lot of power in a lot of plants and a lot of substances. So let's figure out and build a relationship with one first. So protocols is what we call them. Ideally, a schedule in which you're taking this. I really recommend having a notebook. I offer notebooks to people. I have outlines that help people track their process through this experience to really optimize it. If you are interested in that, reach out to me. But otherwise, here's some common protocols, and it's really about you listening to you and sticking to one of these protocols. I think it's best for 2 weeks up to a month to see if it's working for you or not. Because like I said, it's not just like off to the races often. It's a filtering process with dose levels, sticking with one dose for a while, because every day can be very different with the substance. And it's not until you record and you are consistent that you can get a clearer picture of what's working and what's not working for you. Fadiman's protocol is every third day. Stamets protocol is 4 days in a row, 3 days off. There is every other day protocol, nighttime. You can pick this protocol if you want, but it might keep you up. I find that often with people, even if they feel they're very tired when they start their microdosing, they say, okay, I'm going to switch to night. It still keeps them up at night. So just be aware of that. And intuitively, if you don't have the space to really, stick to the schedule, if you feel overwhelmed easily, if you are doing it for creativity reasons, listen to you. All of this, listen to you. But in order to make, like, if you're really trying to work through something that's just driving you crazy, stick to a protocol. Otherwise, if you have time and space, give yourself grace, move through it intuitively. And start on a day that you're less busy. Start on a couple of days where you're less busy. Maybe a weekend, a day you have off, or a day at work where you know that maybe no one's looking over your shoulder, or there's not like a really intense deadline. Let's see. Supportive practices, most important, maybe not most important, but it's up there. Set and setting. It's time to clean up your world to make a change. Set and setting. What's your mindset when taking this? Once again, what's your intention? But mindset is a little different in that, am I skeptical of this? Am I angry about something? Am I frustrated at the conventional medical system? That's why I'm doing this. Am I fed up? Am I really excited? What is your mindset? It's a great thing to add in your notebook while you take your dose and you start this practice. And like I said, document dose in your notebook, dose, time, your schedule that you're sticking to, and your intention. If you want to go deeper, I have options for that. I'm happy to offer them to you. Reach out. Otherwise, note in there maybe your mindset when you're taking it, your setting. What setting are you in every day while you're microdosing? Is your desk beyond, belief? Are you lost in paper stacked up to here? Are things dusty? Are there old food wrappers? Is there poor lighting? What doesn't feel good about your set, your environment, your set and decorations, I like to call them, for your reality? What does it feel like to be in your space? It's going to amplify that. And if it's overwhelming, if it's chaotic, if it's gross and dirty, it's not going to be optimal for microdosing. Document, like I said, in a notebook, your dose at least, on the date and the time, if you took it with anything, and what's your intention and what you practice with it. Because then you can see, especially if you reflect back at the end of the day or the end of the week, wow, I saw these things change. And if not, what did you see? Intention, we get out into that. Where your intention and your attention goes, that energy will flow with that, because we're creating a new pathway in our brain. If we want a new pathway, we have to tell our brain, this is the new pathway that we're going on. Just like intentional driving, off-roading, journaling, you can journal in the morning. It's great. All these practices, 2 minutes even is sufficient. Don't get overwhelmed. Make it doable, make it achievable. Breath work or pranayama. Pranayama is just another word for breath work. Comes from my yoga background. Yoga, movement practices, people really, really love and have seen great changes while moving their body just a little bit with the microdose. Tai Chi, dancing, taking a walk, meditative walking, stretching, getting in touch with your body, dropping into your body, being aware of your body and your feelings is really a great additional practice. Time in nature, meditation, so many styles of meditation that you can do. And the key here is to lean in, surrender. It reminds me almost every time I take it, something difficult comes up for me. And if I just take a minute and allow myself to have that difficult moment, I create so much space. I have such an improved day. Something that I thought would take me 5 hours takes me 3 hours, just because this little thing I'm fighting inside. So lean in, surrender to what's coming, allow whatever's coming up to come up. I know we are just so focused on our task, or we feel such a push to do so much every day. And the byproduct of that is a lot of resistance that we don't really notice is there, and how it really counteracts us stepping into flow and more ease in our lives. So having space to do this practice is so important, because if we feel we're super crunched and worried we're not going to get done what we need to get done in our lives, it's going to make that grace period of even just a couple of minutes for these things a lot harder to do. Taking break periods, it's necessary, they say, for tolerance. It's necessary to review and reflect back. Wow, my month was very different, or I'm very different than I was a month ago, or maybe I'm not so different, and maybe I need to come up with a different practice or a different dose. These are all really beneficial parts of taking a break. it's nice to continue the practices that we were doing with the microdosing that we might have implemented, say journaling or movement or meditation, and noticing the difference of doing it with a substance or without a substance. Maybe revisiting the notes that you took. Integration, oh, I realized I ignore my feelings. So maybe I take a minute or two every day to check in with myself and really see how I'm feeling rather than just plowing through onto the next task. Yeah, utilizing taking a break. It's something that I think is really beneficial and something not a lot of us enjoy doing, or have to get used to doing, that slowing down process. But I think it's important. A lot of times we're addicted to getting more information, to learning more, to doing more. But what happens when we just be and have to learn to act upon what we've learned? That's where the real change takes place. It doesn't take place intellectually, it takes place with action. So, extra support options, going over them again, just handing them in. Online communities, there's so many, so many. I offer one. It's Chicago Psychedelic Community and Plant Medicines group. There's tons of others. I can send you resources. Google it. Look online. There's so many integration circles to reflect upon your experiences with others. One-on-one coaches such as myself and many others. We all have different styles, different flavors. So finding one that really you connect with is great. And just on a final note, of course, thank you. This is my little cheesy learner award for you. But microdosing is a practice of minor adjustments over time. So if we think about getting in a car and we're driving every day for just an hour and we tilt our steering wheel just 1 degree different, even if we're just doing it 1 degree difference for 30 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, over the course of a month, we're going to end up in a completely different place if we didn't tilt our steering wheel just a tiny little bit off our normal route. So be patient with yourself, reach out for support, and trust in the process. That's really, really important, and show up for yourself. So with that, reach out if you have any questions. If you want to go further with this, like I said, there's so many offerings. And at the end of the day, I appreciate you for showing up. Give yourself patience, compassion, and thanks for trying to learn more and improve this process for yourself, make it easier on yourself, and to do it safely. So thank you, and hope to see you soon.